everyone. You're listening to My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, KHTS. If you're just joining us, then I have some sad news for you. This is going to be our last broadcast of My Conscious Dad, but we will still be here every Friday from 12 to 1 on the Inspirational Parent, which is our new radio show. So before we went on the break, we discussed talking about some of our highlights, some past clips from My Conscious Dad. So we're going to go ahead and play one of those. So for me, a conscious dad is just someone who is there for me, not physically. Just because you're there doesn't mean you're supporting me. And that's really what I need, especially as a young girl and growing up as a young teenager, was just to have somebody who is going to support me, cheer me on, be on my team. Because at the end of the day, you could be there, but not really be there. And that's not serving me either. It's almost like I would rather not have a dad than have a dad who's not really there.
So for me, when you shared that, what I visualized is the story about the two dads. One dad works really hard and leaves his house and his family early in the morning, about 4 a.m., gets home at 3 p.m., picks his kids up, feeds them, and then kind of checks out for the rest of the day. His body is there, but his mind's checked out, his heart's checked out. He's not really there emotionally. He's not present. And so when you said that, I visualized that father that's there. He's here in our home, but he's not really here. And then you have the dad that's really mindful and aware and present and in the moment and really absorbing everything. He's observant and he's present and he's acknowledging and he's looking for moments to contribute or be there, or knowing when to back off or when to engage or when to push forward or to invite you in, or and so those are the two different fathers that I was visualizing when you were talking. Is that what you meant by that?
Yeah, I think especially when you're a teenager and you're young and you're still developing, and everything that you make up about life when you're an adult is from those experiences. So for me, not having a dad around, I can't even imagine. So excuse me if my opinion is a little bit askew, but for me, not having a dad, I can see the little things that it would have affected me, and having a dad that is there and then isn't present at all and feels like they're not there, sometimes I think might even be worse, because it's like, you're here and you say you love me and you say that you support me, but you don't show it at all. And I think in any relationship, that's a complicated thing to grasp, because it makes you self-conscious and it makes you more, well, at least for me, it makes me more, what's wrong with me? Why doesn't he care about me? Why doesn't he care about my soccer games or my ballet recitals? Why isn't he here? And that's hard. That's tough for a kid to go through, and they're not going to say anything. Your 15-year-old, your 7-year-old, whatever, they're not going to come up to you and say, "Hey, Dad, how come you don't show up for me?" Imagine if your kid said that.
Well, for one, they don't know how to say that. Two, you're their king and their mom is their queen, and they're not going to challenge you like that, nor do they have the confidence to do that. They might do it at 35 or 40, or maybe as a 20-year-old or 21-year-old when they're intoxicated. They have enough courage to challenge you or call you out. But when they're young, they don't know how to say that. Earlier you were talking a little bit about the father that feels like he's expressing himself and that he is showing his love and being there, and the son or daughter can't experience it, doesn't feel it. It's not matching up with their words. It's got to be tough for a father or a mother to really love their kids and feel like they are sharing that, they are doing that, they are expressing themselves in that way, and it's still not landing for the kid. And that's in my book, it's what I call the great illusion. And the great illusion is that I might see myself as a loving, compassionate, vulnerable, connected father, and my kids might not experience that same level of commitment, and they don't match. And so what I don't want parents to do is live in the illusion that just because they feel that they're expressive and vulnerable and affectionate doesn't mean that their kids experience that. And the reason why I wrote that part in one of the chapters is because a lot of times when I'm working with parents, I'll ask them to rate themselves 0 to 100% in these different categories: loving, compassionate, vulnerable, affectionate. And for the most part, their scores will be 95%, 100%, 98%. And vulnerable, it's obviously down. A lot of people don't see themselves that vulnerable, so they'll be 40. But then when I'll have the son or daughter rate their parent, their mom or dad, in those same categories, they'll be 40%, 60%. So obviously the numbers are off. And what I say is, in the book, I'll say that somewhere in between those two numbers is the truth. So if you took a 90% as the parents rating themselves and the son or daughter's rating them at a 60, somewhere in the middle is the most accurate number. And so to me, that's the great illusion as a parent, is that you think you're all loving and all vulnerable and all committed and taking 100% responsibility for the relationship. But if your kids aren't experiencing that same level of, accurate score that you give yourself, then what's the point? And that's why the subtitle of the book is The Magical Ingredients for Effective Parenting. Because as a parent, you can have all those great inner qualities, but how effective are you if your kids aren't experiencing you at that level?
Yeah, I have a little bit more of a question about, I guess I don't really know what it's about. I'm just going to ask a question. But that idea of the illusion is, if you're a parent and your wife, let's say it's for a dad, and your wife's asking you or telling you, I don't feel like you listen, I don't feel like you this, that, all those things that wives quote unquote nag about, is it possible that your relationship is looking like that with your kids too? Because your kids aren't going to say anything, but your wife will. So is it possible that the relationship that your wife's explaining could also be the relationship that you're having with your kid when you're thinking that it's fine and great and you're going to rate yourself a 10?
Absolutely. In fact, it's a good possibility that your other people are experiencing you like that. Your mom, your sisters, your brother, your neighbors, your best friend. When your wife's giving you that feedback, or your husband's giving you that feedback, if you, depending on the kind of relationship you have around feedback, if you see feedback as a gift, as an opportunity to really take a really good look at that to see what kind of growth you still need to work on, then that's a bonus. But if you don't see feedback as growth or a gift, and you see it as a dig or a judgment, or like taking a stab at me, then you're going to miss the goodie that person is trying to give you, and you're not going to be able to make that course correction to actually create the results that you're looking for.
Yeah, what's really cool about feedback is, even if you're not open to it at the time, this happens to me all the time. I have people in my life that offer feedback without asking for permission first, which is really tough for me, even after all these years of knowing the value and seeing the value in feedback. I still get tagged by people. Oh, getting tagged. That's one of the things we say that people don't know what we're talking about.
Another term, getting tagged.
But getting tagged or being bothered or
annoyed.
Or letting it sit on my shoulders is when people give me feedback without asking for permission first. So one of the things about feedback is, even when I get it in that place where I'm resisting it, I'm upset that someone's kind of, to me, being intrusive on me in my life, is that after time passes, I can see, because I've allowed myself to see what they were saying, that their words just linger in my head for so long that when I finally do get to a much calmer place, I can see what they're saying. And I think everybody naturally does that, unless they're working really, really hard to just suppress it or get those words out of their head. So I've had experience with people who I felt were not very conscious, and after I gave them feedback and they were beyond mad at me, they come back and say, I didn't really realize what you're saying, but now I kind of get it, and I could see how I'm like that, so sorry. And I'm like, and that's like the best, response I could get is even if it's something small like that, is knowing that they didn't go home and just sit there and bash me. They actually sat with it. So I think that's what feedback naturally does on its own, unless we're purposely trying to get rid of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's go to the next soundbite if we can. And like I said, yet last night when I was going through these sound bites, it was, a little bit of challenge to kind of cherry pick all the ones, the good ones. Let's go to that one.
As a young adult or even an adult, most kids will never say, "Hey, Mom, I think you're enabling me. Please don't." So it's your job to
easy button.
Yeah, it's your job as a parent to realize that that's what you're doing, because we don't know.
Well, great insight. What you said, I mean, you hit it right on. Kids aren't going to say, "Hey, Mom, Dad, you're enabling me." They're going to keep taking, because that's what enablers do, is they create little takers, and the takers get used to taking. And it reminded me of the quote that we talked about that supposedly some of us aren't going to remember. If you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. And if you teach a man a fish, you feed him for a lifetime. You got to learn how to teach your kids how to fish for themselves, that you don't keep giving them the things that they at a certain point could decide in their own mind, Mom's got it. What? Dad will figure this out. No, Mom and Dad aren't going to go to the university with you, and they're not going to be in your closet where you can pull them out and just, unless and some moms and dads do want to do that. I'm sure you've been to college and you've seen some of the kids on campus.
Yeah, where they don't know how to do the basics.
Right?
Even laundry. That was a big one. Was laundry.
Really?
Like, what do I do with this? I'm like, really? Have you not done laundry ever? And they're legitimately saying, no, I've never done a load of laundry.
And what I tell parents is your job as mom and dad is to train your kids and teach them how to live on their own in the real world. So your job is to teach them how to cook, teach them how to clean up, teach them how to bathe, teach them how to do all these things, so that when they fly the coop and they go off to college, they're the ones in the dorms teaching everyone else. Your job is to teach them how to interact with the police. Your job is to teach them how to drive the speed limit or get off and help or be a contribution. That's your job, is to teach them how to function in the world, in society, being an extraordinary or outstanding citizen when they leave your home.
Wow, there's so much nostalgia in just those 2 minutes. I remember sitting there thinking of the saying, "Teach a man to fish." We were all arguing about how the actual saying went between the three of us. But one of the things I guess I'll cherry pick out of that was, we even looked at each other and we kind of made that face and nodded our heads like, true. as you were saying it, listening to yourself say it, was that, enablers, they create takers. And man, growing up as a teenager, I remember all my friends, they were all takers. They were all, if I offered them one, they took 5, so that was a big thing for me, was to learn how to not kind of get stepped all over. And as much as I want my kids to grow up and not be takers, I also don't want them to be givers so much that they get taken advantage of, how I feel I was when I was younger. So that being said, I kind of want to go into where's that balance for us. And it would have been really cool actually to do a whole show on that, how to have givers and how to be both, and how to be okay with taking if you're a giver, and how to extend your arm and be a giver if you're a taker.
Yeah, I don't know if, I didn't listen to the whole show when I was grabbing that soundbite, but I'm pretty sure that I spoke to the rule that I have trained myself as a father to not be an enabler, and it's the 3.5 to 2.5 rule, or the 4 to 1 rule. And that is, for every 5 requests that I get for things from my kids, I'll say yes to 1 and no to 4, or I'll say yes to 2 and no to 3, but I'll never go past that point. And the reason why is because I've always wanted to be able to have kids where I taught them healthy boundaries. I didn't want to have kids that were so enabled and to the point where they felt entitled that this is what's just going to happen now, or my dad's going to come in and save me all the time. So I would always, really be mindful of not giving too much, but just enough to let you know that I got your back and I'm here for you in certain circumstances. And, it's funny because even as I'm saying it, I'm thinking to myself, some of that is conditional. I talk about being, loving you guys unconditionally, but some of my giving is conditional, and I'm doing it mindfully, and I'm doing it on purpose, such that I don't create little takers and enable you from having these opportunities to really learn some grit and perseverance. And that's what's happening when we're, as parents, we love our kids so much that we want to give them the things that we never had, or we want to help them out to a certain point. But when we overdo it, we rob our kids from the opportunity to learn on their own that they can handle their own circumstances, that they can figure this out on their own, that they can find the solution or find the answer when mom and dad are not there to come in and save them or scoop them up or, be the superhero in those moments.
Yeah, and I remember sometimes let me start by saying I didn't know when I was younger, I didn't know you had that rule, saying yes to one thing, you had to say no to some things. So every time you said no, it was like, especially when you're a kid, it just hits you so hard. Like, okay, how am I going to do this if I want it? Or how am I going to live without it if I can't have it? So for me, not knowing that put me in a lot of emotional, when you really want something, and even as a kid, if you just want a lollipop and your mom says no, it puts you through all kinds of emotional trauma. You throw a temper tantrum and you scream and you cry and you bang your head on the wall, whatever. So in the teenage version of that, there was a lot of attitude that came from me, and there was a lot of... You want
the new phone, the new BlackBerry.
Yeah, and they're... Oh, gosh,
9 years
BlackBerry.
Or the chocolate. You remember that's what they wanted, the chocolate.
It was a music phone, okay? So, but I remember not being able to have yeses all the time, and I think maybe that is what made me such a yes man growing up, or a yes woman. I was always saying yes. I didn't want to let anybody down. I just said yes all the time, and that kind of contributed to people taking advantage of me because I wasn't valuing my time. They weren't valuing my time, so on and so on. I can also now see that I maybe enabled some people to take advantage of me. Mm-hmm. So I can now see, and this is like years and years.
But that's the responsible version of saying it.
Yeah. So this is, like I said, years and years of you coaching me and telling me this, since I was 15 years old, and I realized this was going on, and I'm 22 now, so that's a long time to be sitting and dwelling in the, oh, well, they're taking advantage of me, they don't care about me, where I played the victim for so many years. And it's probably I think, it's something I'm still growing on, but one of my greatest accomplishments is not being the victim to people taking advantage of me, because I know the role I play, and I know I'm the first one to say I'm a victim to other things, but this one specific thing is one thing that I feel like I'm really slowly mastering, just because it was something that I worked on for so long, and it really was a lot of you telling me the same thing over and over again for 7 years. Just they're not going to value your time if you don't. It was like that was just kept popping up for me, and something that you had to just say, which is funny because when I complain about other things, sometimes you or mom or my friends or whoever will say, oh my God, are you still complaining about that? Just get over it. And that's not really what I need to hear sometimes. Sometimes I need you to tell me the same thing for 7 years before I finally get it.
And from me being the responsible version, I'm looking at how can I say it more effectively? How can I be more creative in the way that I say it whether it's a softer tone or if it's a playful joke or if it's sharing my own learning process. There has to be a learning curve where I can say it in a different way, in a more powerful way, so it doesn't take 7 years. And that's the part of the consciousness, is looking at how can I be more effective in my parenting so my daughter learns that lesson in 2 months or 6 months rather than 7 years. And so that's what conscious parenting is really looking at how can I keep reinventing myself such that the parenting tools that I'm using is more effective.
Sounds great. Stay tuned for more of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, KHTS. Welcome back, everyone. You're listening to our final broadcast of My Conscious Dad right here on your hometown station, KHTS. If you're just joining us today, yes, you heard that right. This is our final broadcast of My Conscious Dad, but my dad and I will be on the air same time every Friday from 12 to 1 on our new show, The Inspirational Parent, which is going to be a very fun experience. I'm excited to start it. It's going to be us kind of going in depth into some of the chapters and the golden nuggets in his book, The Inspirational Parent, the magical ingredients for effective parenting. And I'm really excited to jump into that and introduce a lot of the more deeper ideas that we don't necessarily talk about all the time, because there's a deeper level of consciousness that we're trying to get to, we're working to get to, that the everyday person isn't quite at. So I'm excited to jump into some of those concepts and get the listeners into them and see what it is we're talking about.
I think one of the biggest aha moments that I had, even in writing the book, is just reconnecting back to my commitment to my 3 kids. And, I remember when each one of you were born, I held each one of you and fed you guys your bottle. And I remember staring at you, and you guys were staring at me back with these, little cloudy baby blue eyes. And, you're staring at me, and I'm looking at you, and I'm just in gratitude that I got the opportunity to be your father. And I remember making a vow to each one of you that I was going to guide you in life forever. Not just till you're 18, but that I'm going to be a role model and be your mentor. And so on my journey of parenting, it's been my honor to figure out how to reinvent myself such that I don't give up on that commitment to you guys and not take the easy route and just quit because you became difficult, or you went through the teenage years and I made up a story that you're just, a lost cause, or that you're just lost and broken and just throw up my hands. So, it's really been an amazing journey to kind of figure out how to not give up on you guys and keep figuring out who you need me to be for you guys to keep being an influence. And that's, I think, what really inspired the book, was to write this book in a way that reminds all parents that you made a commitment. And if you didn't make a commitment, maybe it's time that you make that commitment now, and then it's never too late to re-up and re-ante up to your parenting commitment, because your kids need you. They don't need you just until they're 18 and say, okay, now you're out on your own, you got to figure it out. They need you for a lifetime. And, I think that when you sign up to be a parent, whether you're conscious or not, or aware or not, you get to rise up to that level of commitment and ride it all the way to your deathbed. And so I think that's really what the main message is. And more importantly, that, the book's message is about that you have all the gifts within you. You already have all the tools interpersonally within you, your inner qualities. And if just you were taught how to tap into those, and somebody painted a broad picture of what's possible, you might just be inspired to really start that conscious parenting journey and really get excited about it again.
Yeah, and I'm excited to one, like I said, start this show, but end the chapter of My Conscious Dad, in the sense that
The Inspirational Parent.
No, end the chapter of My Conscious Dad.
Nice.
Yeah. So, and start The Inspirational Parent, because one of the things that I really learned out of My Conscious Dad is that when I have a kid and I'm the one staring at them, with their, their blue eyes and everything as a baby, I feel like I have a lot of knowledge, more than the average parent is going to start out with. So, I feel so lucky just to have had that experience. And I'm going to beat myself up if, I'm walking around as an unconscious mom and be able to look at myself back, now when I'm younger and say, what happened, so I don't want to ever be at that point. I want to keep growing from everything that I've learned so far. And I know I'm going to learn a lot in this new show, but the last couple years doing, the show at all is like forcing me to sit down for an hour and learn about parenting every week. So it's like, if I'm not super mom, I'm going to be mad. And you guys better call me out on it.
You are going to be super mom. In fact, I see a future show called Super Mom with Jazmine.
And Andrew is going to have to be super dad, because he's been listening to us at same commitment every week for an hour. He goes through parenting lessons too. So,
and on top of that, I got your back. My commitment to being your father doesn't just stop there. I'm excited to reinvent my commitment and add grandfather into it. So I'll be right there alongside you, not only to point those out, hopefully in a loving and patient way and compassionate, but also be the model. So that which, when you're in your frustration and you're taking that out and projecting onto your son or daughter, grandpa's going to be right there going, come on, son, come with me, and I'll take him for an ice cream, and I'll be that role model, that which you need to see in a subtle way so that you can see it, rather than me, trying to force it down your throat or make you bad and wrong about it, and just kind of be the cleanup. I'll be the cleanup hitter on the team.
Yeah, we all know that grandparents make the best parents because they have so much wisdom, and the most important thing, they have so much patience, and that's why your kids run to grandma when you're being hard on them. I know that I did when I was younger, and I'm really excited to see that next journey for us. So,
sounds good. Let's wrap us up.
Thank you so much for joining us today on our final broadcast of My Conscious Dad. Thank you for the last couple of years. I've had a good time. So join us.
Jazmine.
I love you too. Join us next week on the Inspirational Parent right here on your hometown station, KHTS.